Hello everyone, welcome to another session of AP Human Geography with Mr. Elrod. Today we're continuing on with our discussion on religion, and specifically we're talking about universalizing religions. So we've already been through Buddhism and Christianity, so today we're going to talk about Islam. Again, this is just kind of a brief overview of the religion, where we can find that in the world today, diffusion, as well as elements of the cultural landscape. So in Islam, where it began was what is today known as Saudi Arabia, or historically would have been the Arabian Peninsula, specifically outside of the city of Mecca. And the person that's most important to the religion of Islam is the Prophet Muhammad. The belief of Islam is that Muhammad is the last and the greatest of the prophets of Allah. Muslims do recognize the prophets of Judaism. They recognize the prophets of Christianity. They consider Jesus to be a prophet and a teacher, but do not recognize the divinity of Jesus like Christians do. So again, according to Muslims, Jewish, Christians, and Muslims all kind of run along in the same line. But Muslims are almost the last ones to inherit the latest and the greatest of the revelations of God or Allah, and so that's why they believe their religion trumps the Jews and the Christians. So again, the Prophet Muhammad, was living inside the city of Mecca. It was a very important trading city, and that's really important to understanding kind of Muhammad and his position and the way that he was able to be exposed to Christianity and Judaism. Mecca was a really important trading city. People from all over the world were coming through Mecca. It was right there along the Red Sea in the Arabian Peninsula. So it was a hop skip over to Africa and the East African trading states, up into Europe and North Africa and back east to Asia. So he would have been very familiar with really most of the religions that were around at the time. We have to remember that in the world today, Islam is the second largest religion. It's also the fastest growing religion in our world today. The fastest growing, second largest to Christianity. The holy book of Islam is the Quran. Now, the Quran is a little bit different from the Bible in terms of what Muslims believe about the Quran and what Christians believe about the Bible. Again, it is their holy book, but instead of the divine, like the Bible is considered to be divinely inspired, Muslims believe that the Quran is a divine revelation or a divine recitation. In fact, the word Quran means to recite or recitation. And so what the story of that is, Muhammad is praying out on a mountain outside of Mecca, and he's approached by the angel Gabriel, who comes to him, and then he touches Muhammad on the mouth and tells him to recite. And the things that Muhammad starts speaking, the things that are coming out of his mouth, eventually will be written down into the Quran. Now, Muhammad could not read or write, and so the things that he spoke were written down later. The culture and tradition that Muhammad was a part of was a very oral tradition where they spoke a lot of things and committed things to memory. So he spoke those things, and that's what the Quran is referring to. And so in that way, the Quran is a little bit different from the Bible in that it's not necessarily divine. The Quran is not considered to be divinely inspired, but instead it is a divine revelation coming directly from God, and Muhammad is speaking the words of God and not necessarily writing them down, or God using an author to write a book. When we talk about the diffusion of Islam, of course it's going to start in the Arabian Peninsula. Muhammad was actually kicked out of his hometown of Mecca. The people of Mecca did not accept his message, so he then goes to the city of Medina, gains a relatively large following, and then travels back to the city of Mecca and promptly takes that city over. So pretty soon he's able to conquer most of the Arabian Peninsula. After his death, Islam, through a series of wars and conquest, is able to take over pretty much all of North Africa, moves up into Spain, and then also parts of the Near East into Turkey or the Anatolian Peninsula, Iraq, Iran, and as far east as India. And also, if you're familiar with modern religion and diffusion of religion, Islam makes it all the way into Indonesia. And again, Indonesia is actually the world's largest Islamic country. Because when you look at the countries inside the Middle East and Southwest Asia, the populations of those countries is relatively small compared to the population of Indonesia. even though a lot of times it's actually illegal to be a part of any religion but Islam in several countries like Saudi Arabia, like Iran, and so that might skew the numbers just a little bit in terms of the number of Muslims that are living inside those countries. Here's just a graphic or a map to show us the diffusion of Islam in its early days and kind of really the height and extent of its empire. You can see again all the way into Spain, all of North Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, some parts moving out into Central Asia, so the southern portion of Russia today. And so really, again, this is kind of the extent of the Islamic empires. It's really important to remember this North African region, and I try to remind my students of this quite often, is that North Africa is really different from sub-Saharan Africa. And we have to remember that prior to the Islamic invasions, most of North Africa was inhabited by a Berber population. And so this portion of North Africa has kind of changed hands, and it also gives you an element of the differences in different parts of Africa. And again, a lot of times we talk about Africa as a whole, but Africa can be broken down into many different parts. And one of those is North Africa, where the predominant ethnic group is Arab, and then the obviously predominant religion is Islam. Within Islam, there are two major branches. There are a couple other minor branches like the Sufi, but there are two primary branches, the Sunni and the Shia, and their primary division is over the leadership of Islam. Once Muhammad died, there was the question of, well, who is going to continue on his leadership of the Islamic religion? Those who are part of the Sunni religion believe that anyone can be the next caliph of Islam, as long as that person is a good Muslim and it is chosen more democratically by the larger Islamic community as a whole. And the Sunni tends to be the larger group within Islam. And generally speaking, the less strict that particular group is, the more followers it's going to have because it's easier to follow. And generally speaking, the Sunni are known to be a little bit more loose in terms of practice and interpretation, which is kind of interesting because of this whole ISIS movement that's taking place right now in Syria and Iraq. Those are actually predominantly Sunni Muslims, and a lot of times when we talk about Sunni Islam, it tends to be a little bit less radical because of its more loose practice of the religion. But obviously, that's not necessarily proving to be the case with the ISIS fighters in Iraq. Those who are members of the Shia, or the Shiite branch of Islam, believe that the next ruler of Islam after Muhammad's death needed to be a part of Muhammad's line, Muhammad's direct bloodline. Now, Muhammad did not actually leave behind any sons who survived to adulthood, so the next ruler would need to be a descendant of Ali, who is actually a cousin of Muhammad. And anybody in the idea is that the caliph of the Islamic world would then need to come directly from that particular line. And again, the Shiite or the Shia are considered to be the more strict adherents to Islam, more strict practitioners of that particular religion. When we talk about the place of worship for Islam, that's going to be the mosque. Now, there's some certain important elements to the mosque itself. Again, it is a place of worship, but again, like I was mentioning in the video on Christianity, one of the key differences is that in Islam, the mosque is really more of a place of learning. When we think of Christianity, we think of corporate worship, and that's not really what happens in Islam in the mosque. It's more some teachings and the prayers that are going on there. Actually, I had a chance to visit a mosque in Atlanta, and a church group of mine, we went and we visited, and we just we were allowed to observe a service of the mosque. And really, what you had was the imam was the front. It was more of a history lesson than it was really kind of a spiritual lesson of any kind, as far as my familiarity with church and things like that. So it's a little bit different. And again, the mosque is considered different. Now, within the mosque itself, some things you'll not find are human depictions. Muslims, very much like the Eastern Orthodox, are very concerned with idol worship. So you will not find human depictions. You'll also not find depictions of, sorry about that, you'll not find depictions of Muhammad, especially with his face. That's always considered to be a heresy, or would be considered part of idol worship to show a picture of Muhammad with his face showing. never will you see a depiction of or a try to represent Allah or any of those types of things. So again, the Islamic faith is very much concerned with idol worship, and so they keep that out. And so instead, what they'll do is within the mosque, they'll try to create beauty in the mosque through geometric patterns and also through the use of calligraphy in the mosque. So a couple of examples of mosques in our world today in the cultural landscape. This is the Hagia Sophia. This is found in Constantinople. It was at one time an Eastern Orthodox church, and today is now called the Blue Mosque. So again, and some characteristics of mosques that you'll see. You'll always see minarets, and the minarets are where the call to prayers come from for the mosque. And so again, that's a very typical element of the mosque. This is another mosque. One thing I think you'll find interesting, you see the symmetry in the building. Again, this idea of symmetry and order, using the geometric designs to try and beautify the mosque, since no really other paintings or depictions are allowed inside. Now, one interesting thing is the way in which the mosque can be influenced by the local customs and local culture, and this is the mosque that's found inside the ancient city of Timbuktu. And you'll notice that obviously the mosque looks different. A lot of that has to do with the actual local culture and customs and architecture of Timbuktu and those who are living in the city of Mali. This is another mosque. I figured I would bring in a mosque from the country of Indonesia, since it is the world's largest Islamic country. You'll notice some of the architecture a little bit more reminiscent of Eastern Asian architecture, especially with the roof line. But you still have the domes, you still have the minarets, and you still have some of these arches and things that go back to maybe some more of the Southwest Asian style of architecture, Eastern style of architecture. But I think you see kind of a good mix here of some of the East Asian, as well as some of the Southwest Asian architecture. Now, of course, one of the important elements of Islam in our world today is we want to make sure we're aware of the ethnic and religious tensions that exist predominantly between Islam and Judaism. Of course, that has a lot to do with the important holy places that the Jewish religion was inhabiting and then dispersed after the Roman diaspora, and then the Islamic empires took those places over. So there's a clash over the important holy places. There's a clash over religion. Of course, there's the past couple of months there's been fighting in the Gaza Strip between the Gaza Strip and Israel, or Hamas and Israel, and so that's been going on for a very long time. And so we just need to be aware of the type of tensions that are around in our world, and a lot of it currently in our modern day is centered around the religion of Islam and their fight with various groups of people, whether it be Westerners, whether it be Israel, and of course right now you really have these ISIS fighters are looking, I guess, to carve out kind of their own particular state, and so it's kind of this mixture of religion and nationalism, and definitely some unfortunate ramifications that result from that. So anyway, that's our discussion on Islam. Come back next time and we'll be talking briefly about Sikhism as we move through the universalizing religions and eventually into the ethnic religions.